How's it going, guys? I'm Robert from Untitled Visuals, and these new MacBook Pros have been stirring up quite the buzz, and I'm here to tell you it's true.
All of it. It's all true.
So first, a little background. I own a few Macs, including a 2019 Mac Pro and a 2020 MacBook Pro, and both are decently spec'd. I've always preferred editing off a desktop, and my main workstation has been able to handle pretty much anything I throw at it. When Apple announced the new M1 Pro and M1 Max computers, it was the first time in a while that a product announcement genuinely excited me. The higher memory bandwidth, higher GPU cores, and dedicated media engine, this felt like a laptop I can actually edit on. When Apple announced their new silicon chips, I'll admit I was a bit skeptical at first, but after using the M1 MacBook Air for a bit, I quickly became a believer. The silent operation, the fast wake times, and efficient battery life was just something I never experienced after owning multiple generations of Intel MacBooks. So I opted for the 16-inch M1 Max with 64 gigs of memory for plenty of overhead, and I actually went with the 8TB storage option. I really wanted the ability to store and edit entire projects internally without having to be tethered to a hard drive. Some people might say that the 64 gig memory option is overkill, but I'm consistently sitting at 30 to 40 gigs when I'm deep in an edit. So it's just enough for me to justify the extra memory. A lot of people ask whether they should go for the 32 gig option or 64 gig option, and all I'll say is that it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. My buddy Tyler Edwards actually made a great analogy with this regarding tripods.
When I went and got a tripod, I got the tripod that could hold the heaviest camera with a 75mm bowl. That means nothing to you, sorry. But a lot of my cameras don't even hit that capacity close, but like, if I'm gonna rent a camera for a specific project, like a bigger RED or RE package, or even like a Canon C700, like I've run those cameras on this tripod before, and I'm really glad that I had that tripod because that was something else that I didn't have to rent as part of the package.
Not only did I get a massive amount of internal storage, but these SSDs are absolute rippers. On a Blackmagic speed test, I've peaked over 7 gigabytes write and nearly 6 gigabytes read, which is faster than pretty much any external SSD you can actually buy. On smaller projects, I'll usually offload everything on site using a program called Hedge, then back up later to multiple destinations when I get home. One of my favorite things about the M1 MacBook is its efficiency. It's absolutely insane. On my Intel laptop, if I even blink the wrong way, the fans start whirring up and start becoming jet engines, which has actually been an issue on prior shoots. A lot of times when I'm running remote interviews over Zoom, I'll slowly start to hear those jet engines whirring up and start to become a significant issue for sound.
I think success comes from hard work, grit, fortitude, but also a bit of luck.
In the time that I've had my 16-inch M1 MacBook, I've heard the fans probably less than 5 times. Now regarding the display, it's simply stunning. You've seen all the specs. It's a 10-bit panel, 1000 nits sustained, 1600 peak, and my favorite thing about it are the display calibrations. When I'm delivering for Rec 709, I can select that specific preset from Control Center and limit the display to that output gamut. Since the XDR display is HDR capable, I'm actually looking forward to diving into HDR mastering since I've been getting quite a lot of requests for videos talking about HDR workflows. I haven't really gotten into it because I feel like HDR is primarily a post thing, and it's one of those things where the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know. The notch is definitely present, and the 16-inch version makes it a little bit easier to fit in all the menu items. An app I actually use to help tidy up my menu bar is called Bartender, which groups all of your extra icons into a separate menu. Not sponsored, just a fan of their software. Back are all the beloved ports that we've missed so dearly, including MagSafe, HDMI, and an SD card slot, which I'm actually probably the most excited for. Even though our cameras use all kinds of different media nowadays, SD cards still are pretty relevant because of their utility. When I'm media managing, audio techs usually give me an SD card to dump sound files. My stills camera still uses UHS-2 cards, and firmware updates usually require an SD card. Regarding battery life, I get around 12 hours with a decent amount of web browsing and video streaming. I'm not quite getting the 21 hours Apple is quoting, but it's still way more than I'd expect from my Intel MacBook. If I'm deep in an edit in Resolve, I can probably expect to get 8 to 10 hours from a single charge. If I'm just doing a few hours of casual browsing in Safari, this machine easily lasts days without having to plug it in. Now, for probably the most important part, how does it edit? I'll preface this by saying that I'm by no means an editor, and I'm primarily a DP, so the most intense things I'm ever editing are these silly YouTube videos. I'm also not going to throw a whole bunch of Geekbench numbers at you. You can find those in dozens of other videos. But in short, this thing screams. There's almost no perceivable difference when I go back and forth between my Mac Pro and my M1 MacBook Pro. I mainly edit in Resolve, and it just slices through anything I throw at it. The M1 Max has a dedicated media engine, which includes a decode engine, 2 encoding engines, and 2 Prores accelerators, which helps handle codecs such as H.264, H.265, ProRes, and ProRes RAW. Alright, so export times aren't really that huge of a deal nowadays, but I thought it'd be interesting to compare against some of the systems that I already own. I rendered out my latest YouTube video on 3 different machines: the 2020 Intel MacBook Pro, a 2019 Mac Pro, and the M1 Max. I also exported to 3 commonly used codecs to see where the media engine seems to be most efficient. No surprise, the Intel MacBook got absolutely dusted. Renders were consistently 2 to 3 times longer across all codecs, and not to mention that monstrosity of a fan. Now, here's where things start to get interesting. The Mac Pro rendered H.264 quicker, but only about 9 seconds. With H.265, however, the M1 Max rendered nearly a minute faster than the Mac Pro, a machine that's way over 3 times the price. Now, mind you, my Resolve timelines are definitely simple and my grades are mediocre at best, but that performance is still damn impressive. When taking a look at ProRes though, the Mac Pro absolutely slams the other 2 machines, which was surprising because it doesn't have an afterburner card, while the M1 Max has 2 ProRes accelerators. I never used HEVC because it was always super intensive to both decode and encode, but now it just might be my go-to codec. I'm not sure how much use it gets in professional workflows, but it's quickly become my default for the smaller file sizes and quicker upload times, all while maintaining the same visual fidelity at half the bitrate. I also did a second run on these tests using the high performance mode while on battery, but I didn't really find much of a difference when using Resolve. Now, just for kicks, I also rendered out a 5-minute ProRes clip in Final Cut Pro, and it was just silly how fast the MacBook spits it out. Hopefully this video is helpful in some way. Plain and simple, these new MacBooks are stupid good. So good, in fact, that I'm going to sell my Mac Pro, since this laptop does everything I need it to, and sometimes even better. The fact that I can keep all my files mobile and with me is also pretty hard to beat. I also still really enjoy using the 13-inch MacBook Air. It's my personal favorite when I'm lounging around the house or if I'm traveling and don't need to do any serious lifting. If you're on the fence about getting one, it's an easy yes from me, no matter what system you're coming from. I've come to really enjoy the Apple ecosystem as a media professional. Everything is just easier. I used to be a die-hard PC and Android person, but it was always a struggle dealing with software compatibility and hardware issues. I promise this isn't an Apple ad, and I hate to admit it, but the dark side of that Apple ecosystem is a powerful thing. If you have any questions on this video, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.